what inspired each of you to create the films that you did? Were you drawing from personal experience, or were you reacting to a recent incident, or just the general vision behind your films? Would be great to hear a voiceover of. And like, I know, Gayatri, when we had last chatted, you had mentioned that a lot of the events in the film were inspired by the lead's life. So if you could speak a little bit more to that, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, so I had worked with our lead actress, Sajaya / V. Kumari, and Nirav Bhakta here, my co-director. We'd all worked on a film together many years ago. They'd actually played mother and son in a film that I directed. And they had kept in touch over the years, and Nirav and I had become really good friends. And in the last, it was 2 years ago, Nirav told me that he'd been talking to V about the roles that were available to her in the industry, and how vanishingly small that pool was, despite her talent. So she's going out, to play the Indian mother, arranging her kids' marriage over and over again. And, we just started talking more about how we could do something a little more nuanced. I was itching to direct something. It had been a minute. Nirav and I had collaborated on a short documentary that we were really enjoying doing together. And so this opportunity presented itself. And V really opened up to us. She told us about a very brief but abusive marriage that she'd been in, and how it had affected her. And she really let us in and told us a lot of intimate details about what had happened. And around the same time, Nirav discovered a prompt for the HBO APA Visionaries Contest. And they wanted short films from Asian Americans about the digital age and how it affects connection between people. And so those two things kind of came together. And what brewed for us was essentially a love story about this woman who gets a new Facebook account. She's, late middle age, she's over 50, and she reconnects with someone from her past who was her childhood sweetheart, a best friend of hers, a woman named Pramila. And as she's kind of reconnecting with this woman, she's also essentially trying to get out of this relationship that she's in. Nirav, I don't know if you want to expand on anything there.
I think you nailed it on that. You did great, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's really inspiring to hear that she was so comfortable sharing her own personal experiences and coming forward with that. And, having watched the film, I can see how, it's such a simple story that I'm sure viewers are able to resonate with, and knowing that fact that this is a very real story and it was being drawn from real experiences, I think makes it all the more compelling for sure. So thank you for sharing that. What about Kahlil and Andrew? Do you guys want to talk about what inspired you to make Uncle?
Yeah, definitely. Kahlil, if you want to start, and then I can piggyback off of you.
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it was definitely taken from personal experience. So for those of you who don't know, it's about it's like a father and son in a car, and it's about their relationship. And every morning on their commute to work in the morning, they call their uncle, the dad's brother who's still in India. And basically, those are, it was based off of kind of conversations I've had with my dad, and I think there's something very universal about being first generation American and having a relative who your whole relationship with them is over the speakerphone of a car or over Bluetooth, and so I definitely just wanted to give sort of shed a light on that, and then Andrew, if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, and so, when I read Kahlil's script, it reminded me a lot of conversations that I had with my dad, and just the difficulty that fathers and sons and men in particular can have with communication and communicating vulnerably and just opening up to each other. And it really struck a nerve, especially with the added addition of the relative from far away, because both Kahlil and I dedicated this short to relatives of ours that had passed away, dealing with elements of mental illness. And that second scene in the film in particular, for those that haven't seen it, it's a little bit of a spoiler. The first scene, when Aleem calls, he's very jolly and he's kind of, you know, the bridge between them. And in the second scene, he still is the bridge, but he's much more solemn and subdued. And that was directly reflective of conversations that I had had with my aunt in the later years of her life. She had gone from being the life of the party and very, you know, ebullient and effervescent to very monosyllabic one-word answers of hi, okay, good. And it was important for us to show that, and also to show how that, you know, affects Imran, the father, and how Harris picks up on that. So yes, this was definitely drawn from a lot of personal experience and a lot of, you know, desire of Kahlil and I to be able to, like, you know, show, you know, men dealing with emotion in ways that we haven't quite seen before.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I think especially, you know, the relationship between Harris and his father, I think having, like, seeing that, like, immigrant first gen dynamic, I think is definitely something that a lot of people can relate to. So that was super cool to see. And then Rahul, I know, like, with your film, like, the entire thing is shot, you know, it's almost from, like, a child's perspective at first, and, like, would love to hear where you got that idea and, like, what inspired you to make that movie, and if it was, you know, drawn from any personal childhood experiences or where that came from.
This is my third feature film actually of all sci. So the idea is not from a very personal experience, but my initial thought about this film was I wanted to speak on the subject of voyeurism and moral policing, both of which are two things which are on the rise, and we refuse to talk much about it, or the medium of cinema has not represented it in a what that horror of all these things is. So that was my initial starting point of it, and then again, as you said, the film has a different narrative style in the sense, like, we have attempted the screen life format of narration, or that genre is what we have attempted in this film. So the idea of technology and the abuse of technology, because the intention behind the camera is what drives this film. The moment the camera changes hands, the intention of the person behind it changes. So what starts off as something, an intention, so that's something probably very creative, ends up being an instrument that chronicles a tragedy. So it has that intent of the people who use technology is what we have always seen as driving it. And but of course, there has been numerous cases of such abuse of technology and abuse of individual privacy, especially in my part of the country. And so this is not something, I don't say it is not something new. We have all heard such terrible news from around us, and we have, in a very bad sense, we have become very comfortably numb about all that. So this film about voyeurism had to be treated in a very voyeuristic way. That was the idea of choosing this format and narrating the story.
The style in which it was shot, like, certainly, you know, adds a great level of depth to the story that you were trying to tell. So that was excellent. And then Gaurav, I know, you know, your film is pretty politically focused, which is a bit different from the others in this forum. So was your process, your ideation process, any different, or, you know, what inspired you to make Cowmedy?
So if you people have noticed, the politics around the world is changed in last 6-7 years. The way America has got Trump, the way India has got Narendra Modi, and the religion has become a very major issue in all over the world, like what is happening in Turkey, what is happening in Saudi countries, and now Indians want a Hindu Rashtra, Hindu nation. It's all really weird, you know, it's all scary also. So when all those things started happening in 2014, and I was observing it, and it was was scaring me. And I kept reading news about mob lynching, how cow vigilantes used to stop truck drivers, they used to beat them to free the cow. It is fine to love animals, but what are you doing to show that love? You're killing people. And they not only killed people, but also courts supported them, police supported them, system supported them, you know. And it scared me. All those incidences, they kept on going in my mind, and I'm really affected by the social and political environment around me. So my genre is comedy basically, but where does the comedy come from? It comes from the deep irony. It comes from the tragedy. And I was discussing it with Arjun also the other day. I was writing a comic story, and in that comic story, I had to create a character, and the character had to go out from a party. So I had to create a reason why is he going out. So I just gave him a funny reason that he is a cow vigilante. I did it because politics and social things keep going on in my mind all the time. So I just gave him a funny reason that he's a cow vigilante and he has to go out of his party to save a cow. And the next day, when friends meet him and they ask him, "Ki, what happened with that cow?" So funnily, I just wrote a line that, you know what, the truck driver ran away, and all my party members, they wanted me to keep the cow, and I'm really stuck now. I don't know what to do with the cow. So I cannot leave it because the cow, I really support the cow, the ideology of the cow. And I don't know where to keep it. It's become a trouble for me. So that was the idea. That was not the main idea of that story, but that funny line, it stayed with me. And months later, when I had time, so I started exploring this one line. What if a cow vigilante has to keep a cow himself? And you know what? Keeping a cow is not that easy. It's not that easy. You really have to take care of the cow. You really have to feed her, and you really have to invest time with the cow. So it's not really easy. So what if you killing people who has bought the cow, then they're not going to kill the cow, but you killing them. And what if you have to keep the cow? And the way cow is being symbolized, the cow is being used as politics. It's become a politics now. Not only cow, but it is happening at the national level, at international level, in fact. If you look at Turkey, if you look at Pakistan, India, Nepal, and what is happening in China, everywhere. So it affected me, and I came up with a funny story, which is Cowmedy.